Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nano Blitz podcast. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Ethan Silver.
Hey, Ben. So today we are talking about fantasy football. And I know people don't really like to hear about fantasy football stuff sometimes, but think about it like this. Fantasy football means we're talking about players. We're talking about sleepers in the NFL. It's going to be quality content. You know, you could expect that from the Nano Blitz.
Yeah, and this could possibly even help you out in your own fantasy football draft.
Yeah. So to start, I want to say this is like very opinion based because Ben and I seem to share a lot of the same opinions, I'd say, in the NFL, but a lot of people just see things differently. Like, for example, I don't think Ben or I really like Jalen Hurts that much, but he's like always ranked in the top 10 QB rankings for fantasy football. I don't really get it, but yeah.
You know, a lot of these guys are ranked there just because of upside. Because, like, people think that since he's a young scrambling quarterback, he's going to turn into the next Lamar Jackson. Or even just because he has a chance of doing that, they think that it's worth taking him as their starter, even though it's very risky.
Yeah, I don't know. I will definitely not be doing that. But I honestly, if you want a sleeper quarterback from me, I'm not sure about that. I
already know mine.
Who would your sleeper?
And I wouldn't even consider him. I mean, it's not a sleeper, but in terms of undervalued, Lamar Jackson. I mean, people are projecting him as like the fourth or fifth best quarterback. He could easily be the first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. He brings in that scrambling ability, and I feel like people do a pretty good job of remembering that fantasy football isn't football. That's like the reason Jalen Hurts is ranked high.
Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson, yeah, the rushing game is just it's too much.
Yeah, I think people, honestly, I'm surprised that, I mean, I could understand putting Mahomes over him, but I don't see how he can at least be this. I don't see how you could rank him and not put Lamar Jackson as the second best fantasy quarterback. I mean, he on a regular basis, he gets 100 rushing yards a game as well as putting up great. What?
I was going to say, I'll let you finish first, actually.
Yeah, so on a regular basis, he gets like 100 yards rushing per game along with his passing performances. I just don't see how this guy couldn't be the second quarterback or even first quarterback taken off the board. Because I definitely think if I was picking a quarterback one for next year in terms of fantasy, I'd pick Lamar.
Yeah, probably. You see people saying Dak Prescott just because he gets a lot of garbage time yards. So that could be high with rankings. But if you're going to go rushing yards versus passing yards, you're going to go with the rushing yards just because in most leagues, the rushing yards are more valuable than the passing yards.
Yeah. So who's a sleeper quarterback that you have?
Honestly, in terms of sleepers, it's hard to give because usually when I'm thinking of sleeper quarterbacks, I'm also thinking of Lamar Jackson. And the only person I could really give you is probably a rookie quarterback, just depending on where they start. If they start week, I doubt Justin Fields is going to be a week one starter. Same with Trey Lance.
Trevor and Zach Wilson will probably be though.
Yeah. I would, maybe I would even say Carson Wentz, but that's kind of out of the question now because of his injury.
Yeah. I mean, Darnold could be a sleeper.
The best sleeper I would give you is probably Baker Mayfield.
Interesting.
Odell's, interesting. Every time Odell comes back, everybody's like, Odell's back. He's going to do it. And it doesn't really happen, but you just kind of got to go off of feeling. Baker Mayfield had a really good season last year, and he's progressing into the better side of quarterbacks in the NFL. Some people have him in their top 10. I don't know about myself personally, but I know some people do. Baker Mayfield could be a good option in like the later rounds because not everybody wants to take a quarterback in the third round like I did last year with Lamar Jackson in my fantasy league. But, if you want to wait maybe to I don't know, he could probably last until maybe 8 or 9, honestly. Baker Mayfield could be a good option.
I think another sleeper quarterback is actually Jameis Winston because regardless how he performs in real life, his play style translates very well to fantasy. And that has led to the last time he was a starter, even though he wasn't a good quarterback that year and he threw 30 interceptions, he was still a top 5 fantasy quarterback that year. And it's looking like he's going to be the starter over Taysom Hill this year. So I definitely think he could be a sleeper. And honestly, he has, just because of his like play style, he's obviously, I don't think he's going to be like a top 5 or even top 10 quarterback next year, but he realistically has top 5 quarterback upside for fantasy.
I agree. And a good transition from Jameis Winston to some skill positions is, hey, Jameis Winston doesn't work out, 100% try and go pick up Taysom Hill or draft Taysom Hill, depending on how big your league is. That guy will figure out some way to get yards for you. Maybe not a starter, but I think he's a definite player on most teams. I don't know about 10-man leagues, but if he ends up the starting quarterback for the Saints, he's definitely going to be.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he's a very interesting pick because in some leagues last year, people are banning him from putting him in because he was actually listed as a tight end last year. So you could have
when he got passing yards.
I don't think it'll be like that this year, though.
Yeah, he's going to be listed at quarterback.
Yeah,
almost indefinitely. Is he? Let me check real quick. Is he listed at quarterback?
I believe he's listed at quarterback. There's no way they would just let him be listed at. They should only let you. Is he?
Yeah, he's a quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's funny. He's a funny player. There was just some weeks where he put up 0 points, and then other weeks where he's putting up points.
Yeah, I think he even had like a kick return touchdown one week. He's something.
He's quite the interesting player.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Taysom. I think most people are. That could be a good pickup in fantasy. You're right, but maybe not in a 10 team. Just for preference, like the league we're doing, like personally, is like a 10 team. But we've done 18 before. We know I'm actually in one currently that's like a 12 league. I personally prefer ones that have more people because when you get more people,
your team,
you're banking on these like sleeper picks.
Yeah,
like you're drafting backups sometimes.
I think there was a point last year where Ben was in a league, I believe with more than 32 people
20,
or something like that.
20.
Oh, there were 20 people. I thought there were more than 32 in it.
No.
Ben's best player was Frank Gore. And it gets to the point. Like, I think I'm going to join one of those, honestly. Like, me and a group of my friends are probably going to join like one of those huge leagues where it's really hard to get a good player if you don't have like some of the top picks in the draft. But yeah. So moving on to running backs. Let me just get this out of the way. I don't really understand why Derrick Henry's getting a lot of hate from a lot of fantasy football people, like fantasy football pages on Instagram, fantasy football people on Twitter, all that stuff. I don't understand the Derrick Henry hate. I think it's because he's ranked 4th among running backs, I'm pretty sure, in fantasy football for this year. And a lot of people are speculating that he won't be 4th. And he's ranked 4th by like, I'm not sure. It might be a mixture of AI and people, just AI, just people. And yeah, it's going to be really hard to replicate the season he had last year, including, his stats for the NFL might be the same, if not better than last year. But you got to remember, there's an extra game this season in the NFL. So
that is true.
It's going to be harder. Like, he's ranked 1 in the ESPN fantasy app, but I know in like speculation, he's not number 1. I know people putting Dalvin Cook over him, but someone really interesting to talk about that is back is Austin Eckler.
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of him as well.
I think was it me who drafted him last year and just ended up getting kind of
no. I actually found him in free agency last year because someone didn't think he was coming back, so I picked him up and he played the last 2 games for me.
Oh no, but I think I drafted him last year.
I believe you did.
Yeah, and then but if I never drafted Austin Eckler, then I probably would not have started James Robinson. And James Robinson is someone I don't want to humble myself at all. I take full responsibility for me finding James Robinson and being like, James Robinson's going to be good, because I don't really remember who I was going to draft, but I was going to draft some Jaguars running back that wasn't going to start. And then one day I was just like searching up because I really didn't feel great about whoever I picked. I don't really remember. And I found out James Robinson was starting for them, which happened so like nonchalantly. No one like talked about it. Jaguars are relevant, whatever, last season. So James Robinson was very good for me. So was Kareem Hunt. I kind of had a weird running back room last year. It was very like make or break. Just like AJ Brown last year.
Yeah. So, and speaking of James Robinson, who do you think out of all the rookie running backs will be performing the best? Because obviously there's the top candidate of Najee Harris. Do you think it'll be him, or you think it'll be someone else?
I think it'll be Najee Harris, just because he's the only like guaranteed starting running back as a rookie right now. Because James Robinson and ETN are probably gonna like split. Michael Carter could be someone to look at.
Yeah, Michael Carter, like he's gonna be the starter. Yeah, he actually.
I know a lot of people saying Trey Sermon could be a good person. I don't know. That's kind of risky, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
I don't think he'll be the main person. There is no main person in San Francisco, but I think he'll be a nice addition in real life, not fantasy football, but in actual football, he'll be a nice addition. I'm not sure how he's going to do in fantasy, but in real football, it'll be a nice addition to that committee.
Someone that piques my interest a little bit is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I definitely think he could be really good. And he was pretty good last year in fantasy up until Le'Veon Bell got signed by the Chiefs for – I really don't get it. I don't get it. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire was like the best last year, but I definitely don't think he was struggling enough to bring in Le'Veon Bell and have him split carries, because the weeks he got like the big start were the weeks he was putting up a bunch of points, or at least a good amount of points. Like when it was just him. I mean, first week we all remember him and David Johnson were going crazy.
Yeah.
He put up 20 points first week, and then he just showed really good consistency. I think, honestly, just talking about it makes me want to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I think it's a little risky just because some people like to take him early, and I don't want to have him on my mind and be like, oh shoot, he got taken.
Yeah. Also, I agree with that. I think he was definitely overdrafted last year, but his spot this year could be a good pickup. And a running back that I've actually been looking at for a little while is Myles Gaskin. And the reason I'm looking at him is because, first of all, he was the 7th round pick last year. He comes in, there's no expectations for him. He puts up great production. And he gets like 20 carries a game multiple times. They even use him in the receiving game. He dropped like 30 points. He dropped like 30 points in week 16. It's just insane. And the thing I liked, the Dolphins, I actually thought were going to go draft one of my favorite running backs, Javonte Williams, this year, but the Broncos traded up and took him away from him. And for the rest of the draft, the Dolphins didn't really draft that much competition. So Myles Gaskin is kind of going to be like the undisputed running back one in Miami. And I think he has a lot of potential to put up some production.
I agree. Myles Gaskin is definitely like not even a late round, because I feel like even though he's not talked about much, I feel like a lot of people have him in the back of their mind. But among running backs, you can definitely get Myles Gaskin later. And if he stays healthy, or the Dolphins don't move around running backs like they have been for the past, 2 years, then I think Myles Gaskin could be a really, really good pick. I agree with you.
Yeah, he's definitely value-wise my favorite running. I don't think he's a late-round pick at all, honestly, but I also don't think he's an early-round pick. So he's definitely my favorite running back that I would, in terms of value, to take in the middle rounds, because I think he does have top 10 running back potential, considering he did have production last year, and the Dolphins did. I mean, the Dolphins, the only person they brought in to really compete with him is Malcolm Brown, who isn't very good, and he really isn't that good. So he's kind of like the undisputed running back one.
Yeah.
And then we also have, you first.
Well, I just want to talk about something I didn't bring up yet that is actually pretty common in fantasy, but people kind of just look at names. You got to look at schedules. Because the Steelers going against certain D lines and linebackers, Najee Harris is going to be a lot better because of strength of schedule. They're going up against really good teams. Don't get me wrong. Like they have the Bills on their schedule, the Seahawks, but you're really going to take like the Seahawks like line because Bobby Wagner's there, obviously, but he's not going to be there every play. And, just it's not always the player, and sometimes it's just who the player's against. So
an example of that would be last year in week 1 when Saquon Barkley literally had like negative yards again. The 1 week he like actually was healthy and played. He actually had negative yards against the Steelers defense, but it wasn't entirely his fault. It was mostly just a combination of the Giants having one of the worst O lines and the Steelers having one of the best D lines, which is not a good combo for a running back.
Yeah. Ben Roethlisberger, I'm pretty sure that week actually had more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And Najee Harris, that's a very interesting situation because there's a lot of things I like about that, but there's a lot of things that I'm a bit worried about. Like, I like the fact that like he's like the unquestionable running back one. Like they literally have like Benny Snell and that's it. Like he's hopefully gonna get the touches, but like something I'm worried about is the Steelers aren't known as a team that runs. Like last year, I mean, they didn't have the best running backs, but they ran like the least in the league, even when they should have been running. They didn't run at all. They just threw like 50 times a game with Ben Roethlisberger. And Ben Roethlisberger isn't good enough to do that. He's not like Patrick Mahomes. He can't be throwing 50 times a game. And
maybe like 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's like, you should be running it. You shouldn't be running it the least in the league. You don't have like a top 10, top 5 quarterback or even like a top 20 quarterback. So you should be running it. And that's just a concern I have because the Steelers offense over the past few years, ever since Le'Veon Bell, even when Le'Veon Bell was there, they didn't run it as much as like some other teams or star running backs because he was so good in the receiving game. But that is a worry I have about Najee Harris, that the Steelers game plan isn't going to allow him to get as much touches as he should be getting. And as much as people project him getting.
If Najee Harris can just be worth a first round pick and be one of the top 10 running backs in the league or like top 15 really, then he will definitely exceed expectations, especially on the team he's on.
He has really high expectations.
Yeah.
And another problem he's going to be issued with is that the Steelers O-line is a lot worse to say.
Oh yeah.
You lost a lot of key members without adding anyone.
Villanueva and DeCastro, it's not a good look.
Yeah, it's not good. And the one more running back I only want to talk about really one more running back before we move on. If you have anyone, you could say after. But no, the last running back I want to talk about for right now is Chase Edmonds on the Cardinals. He was the backup last year. Kenyon Drake was out for a few games. He looked really good in those games. And honestly, I don't see James Conner as much competition in the backfield. I think Chase Edmonds is definitely going to win that running back one spot. And I really don't see James Conner as much of a threat. I mean, he is very, very injury prone, but like, even besides that, I don't think he's very good. Like watching Steelers games last year, he didn't look that good. But
yeah, I can agree with that. I also think if what Ben just said is wrong, it's because he's hoarding touchdowns. Because we're talking about fantasy.
Yeah.
True. And the casual fantasy football player will be like, wait, why? What's going on? Why would he say Chase Edmonds if Chase Edmonds isn't going to be producing? It depends how much the Cardinals want to run the ball.
Even if they don't, though, Chase Edmonds is definitely a threat in the receiving game because even last year when he was the backup, he was still a receiving back. And I mean, last year he had like 87 yards in a game. So especially in PPR, I would look out for Chase Edmonds. I think that he's still a pretty good pickup in non-PPR, but I would definitely look for him in PPR because even if he's splitting touches with James Conner or James Conner's like stealing his touchdowns, he will still get points from the receptions and the yards.
Yes, I agree. Someone else that could be a big receiving threat as a running back that a lot of people, I feel like, will talk about this year, but will it'll just kind of go over their head just because the team he's on. I think Antonio Gibson could be a really good pickup in fantasy as well. And that's all I really have to say about it. Also, I'm not 100 on Jonathan Taylor being as good as he was last year. That kind of all happened in the last game, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you about Jonathan Taylor. And also, it's not even the fact if he's going to be good or not. He has a lot of competition in that backfield. I don't think that warrants his projection of a top 10 running back. I mean, the Colts are kind of a committee. Like, I don't think they have like a true like obviously Jonathan Taylor is the running back one, but like he has competition with Jonathan Wilkins and Marlon Mack coming back.
If they really were, if the Colts were really this confident in Jonathan Taylor, they probably wouldn't still have Marlon Mack.
Yeah, they literally re-signed Marlon Mack. I mean, it wasn't like an expensive contract because he's not very good, but they still brought him back. Like, they could have just let him go. And Jonathan Wilkins is a fine running back too, but it seems like they still want to have, like, Jonathan Taylor's going to be the running back one. He could have 1,000 yards again, but I would just be a little skeptical when picking up, and I don't think he's going to have as good of a year as last year.
Also, real quick, just don't forget about David Montgomery also.
Yes.
Just don't forget about that guy, because if that guy's there in like even the 5th or 6th round, you don't think twice.
I don't think he'll be there though. That's the thing.
To receivers, this is where it gets tough because Ben and I play on non-PPR, and some receivers just get the ball so much more than other people. Like, you're not going to want DK Metcalf as much in PPR as you are going to want it in PP or non-PPR.
Yeah, same thing with DJ Moore. He doesn't get a lot of catches, but he scores those. A lot of the flashy guys, that's why I like non-PPR, because it kind of values like flashiness over just getting like receptions.
Yeah, like Calvin Ridley. That guy gets huge plays, but he doesn't get targeted so much, even though this year it's different because Julio Jones is not on the team anymore. Speaking of Julio Jones, though, I really don't know what to think about AJ Brown this year in fantasy. Some people were saying he's receiver one. Julio Jones is the person who's not going to get the ball as much, but I don't know about that. Julio Jones is still Julio Jones. I don't care that he's in his 30s.
You know how much I love AJ Brown. I mean, I had him in fantasy last year. He scared me every game.
Yeah,
he scores in like the 4th quarter. But honestly, I don't think that AJ Brown should be like a top 5 fantasy receiver. I think he's going to be a top 10. I think he will have a better season than Julio, but he's not someone I would draft in like the 2nd round, maybe the 3rd, but I wouldn't draft him in the 2nd round like some people are, but the thing about him, he just has such like big play potential. And you got to remember that last year, he literally was playing the entire season on 2 like busted up knees, and he still had that amazing year. So even though he's one of my favorite receivers in the league, I've loved him for a long time. The Julio Jones thing, I just don't know. I mean, it's Julio Jones. I think that Julio Jones is going to be the receiver one. Like, AJ Brown's great, but I think he'd be fine taking a slight back, like not even really a back seat, because they'll probably both go over 1,000. But I think he'd be fine, like becoming like kind of like the receiver two, even though they'll both be the receiver ones, because it's Julio Jones. Like, if he's healthy, he's a top 3 receiver.
Okay. I definitely see what you mean. I was a little lost for a second, but I definitely understand. Here's some advice for me. People are ranking people like Deontay Johnson really highly. Like every one of the 3 Steelers receivers, Juju Smith, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool, all look very high on a lot of fantasy football, like speculations and stuff. I suggest do not take a Steelers receiver unless it's late and you still have someone like Deontay Johnson able to take. I also see the same with Bengals receivers. It's so scary taking rookies to start. Like even running backs, really, unless it's someone you're going to be really like, what you're getting out of them, like how I was with James Robinson, just any RB1 pretty much. But it's a little different with receivers because Jamar Chase maybe got drafted to play receiver 1, but there's still a lot of competitiveness going on in the Bengals locker room. You have T. Higgins to deal with, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. It's just not a good look. So I would stay away from Steelers and Bengals receivers. The receiver groups I wouldn't stay away from, though. Both Rams receivers could be really good.
Yeah, they always produce. They're very equal, though. Like, it doesn't really matter which one you take.
I mean, I feel like if it's PPR, I feel like Cooper Kupp's going to get a little bit more receptions. But I think overall, you don't got to worry about either of them if you're drafting either of them because especially with Matthew Stafford at quarterback now.
Oh yeah, they're going to be and Cam Akers got injured. They're going to be very pass heavy.
Yeah. So talking about defenses, I think it's a time to talk about the defenses because. I wasn't talking about defenses. Sorry, talking about the Rams. I'd like to talk about defenses because it's pretty clear Rams could probably have the best defense this year. So I don't know if a lot of leagues actually do defenses. I assume they do. I haven't really been in a league without defenses, but defense as a group, you kind of have to look at completely different than actual defense, like in the NFL.
Yeah, because when defense and fantasy, you're basically, I mean, it matters how much yards like they give up and stuff. Like that does affect the scoring, but it's more so about like how many sacks do they get and how many turnovers do they force. And when they do force a turnover, if they run it back for a 6, one play turn literally like changes the entire game.
Like for example, Jair Alexander is a really good corner, but I would definitely prefer even someone like JC Jackson just because he got so many picks last year over Jair Alexander in fantasy. Just because if you're going to get, almost a pick every single game, then there's definitely no way that I'm not going to go.
Are we talking about team defenses or just individual? Because I don't know many people that actually play individual.
No, I'm talking about team defenses, but
that's what I thought,
Because I think, but I'm just comparing like how you would want DBs to work. Because I'd say if you're looking just purely on turnovers, go for the Dolphins. Just because Xavier Howard and sometimes those random Dolphins like players just punch out
Emmanuel Ogbah and Andrew Van
Ginkel. Yeah, it's just Dolphins are kind of a gamble. I don't feel like they're much of a gamble, or as much of a gamble at least this year than they were last year. Patriots, I think you pretty much know what you're gonna get. Rams and Browns are probably the best 2 defenses you can get in fantasy. Steelers are up there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about defenses, honestly. I don't really focus that much on that. But if we could go back to receivers, can we go back to receivers? I still have some people I want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to say him. I know you want to talk about him too, but I'm going to talk about Marvin Jones Jr.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at this guy. Oh, yeah. Just go. You can talk.
Me and Ethan both absolutely love this. We've talked about this on numerous occasions. We both absolutely love it. I'm interested to see if either of us actually gets him when our draft rolls around. But we both love him in fantasy. I mean, think about it. He's probably on the Jaguars. I mean, him and DJ Chark are competing for that receiver 1 goal. And Marvin Jones is someone who is amazing for fantasy because it's not about the yards. He gets touchdowns. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns in a game. What?
Red zone monster.
Yeah, he is an absolute red zone monster. I loved that signing when the Jaguars did that because he is the perfect receiver to have for a rookie quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. Like, you don't know who to throw in, you don't know who to give it to in the red zone. Give it to one of the best red zone receivers in the league, in Marvin Jones, and he will make the catch most of the time, and he will score points.
It's interesting because usually with Marvin Jones, I'd be like, yeah, draft him, he'll get touchdowns. But we don't know who Trevor Lawrence wants to pass to because he's a rookie. We don't know what his tendencies are in the actual NFL, just because it's a lot harder than college football where he can walk on anyone and pass it to anyone. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be tough. But if I'm putting money on it to take a Jaguars receiver, I'm not taking DJ Chark. I'm not taking
him either. I had him a couple of years ago. I mean, he's good. He's more of a vertical threat, like getting down the field, but his red zone production alone allows Marvin Jones to have serious potential as a receiver. And it's also good that he's not on the Lions anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Lions, literally, I don't see myself drafting a single Lion.
Yeah.
Maybe DeAndre Swift.
Even then, though, they brought in so much competition for him.
Yeah, but no competition with any receivers. The receivers are just so bad. But that's why I would draft DeAndre Swift, just because their passing game is going to be so bad. They downgraded in every single position when it comes to passing.
The only guy I'd consider drafting is TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, how can I forget? Excuse me for that one. I should lose money for that.
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson.
That would be a good pickup. He's proven in the league already. He was proven last year, even when they had Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Now they don't have either of them. Who do you think is going to take them up? Who do you think is going to lead the team in yards and touchdowns? TJ Hawkinson.
Probably TJ Hawkinson, unless something weird happens.
Why do I feel like he's not going to lead? Why do I feel like he's not going to lead the Lions in yards now?
I could see yards. I feel like there's going to be like some random red zone like receiver that just does good.
Tyrell Williams?
Sure. It doesn't really matter to me. They're in a tough spot. But I'd probably say at this point, if we're going to talk about tight ends, do you have other receivers to talk about?
Well, obviously there's the usual Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney, if that guy can be good, even though Allen Robinson is there, then I'm going to be so upset because I'm probably not, even though he's one of my favorite players in the league, just because Darnell Mooney is Darnell Mooney, there's no way that I'm probably going to draft him unless it's really late. Actually, there will be a way because I end up drafting like Mecole Hardman in like the 18th round or something like that. Is there even 18 rounds? I don't know. But I end up drafting someone really late. So, yeah. But my tight ends that I'm looking at.
I have one more receiver. But this is one that I would stay away from. I would personally not, unless he falls to like the very, very late, unless he falls to like the late rounds, I wouldn't draft Kenny Golladay. I mean, first of all, he has serious injury concerns. It happens literally like every year. Yeah. And that's not even the main reason I'm not drafting him. His quarterback is Daniel Jones, the second worst quarterback in the league. Yeah. I don't see Daniel Jones like Kenny Golladay is a great receiver, but he also had Matthew Stafford before. Going from Matthew Stafford to Daniel Jones is a huge downgrade. And I honestly, that combined with the injury concerns he literally had, it's like, I know you don't like calling people injury prone, but it literally happens like every year.
No, I don't like, it's not that I don't like calling people injury prone. I think there are a lot of people that people say are injury prone just because like they've gotten injured.
Okay, but he is injured. He's injury prone.
He's injury prone. He's really injured.
He's very injured.
But the thing is, this is a joke, by the way. This is a joke. I feel like I need to clarify before I do anything. Kenny Golladay is a well-known deep threat, and I'm just gonna say it. Daniel Jones. This is such a Giants fan thing to say. Pretty sure Daniel Jones had like the best deep ball percentage, like last year or something like that, something stupid like that. So every Giants fan like thinks that he's still gonna be good. I don't actually. Let me just take that back. I don't think any of us Giants fans really think that he's gonna be good, but we have faith. I don't think he's good. He only was worse last year than he was.
Yeah, and I mean, ever since he's been drafted, it was an overdraft by far when he was drafted. And yeah, I mean, I would say he hasn't lived up to high expectations, but he didn't really have high expectations until he was actually drafted. Like he shouldn't have been given those expectations because he should have been a second or third round pick, not the 6th overall pick.
What I just don't get is how are you worse from the year where you were splitting starts with Eli Manning to the year that you had 2 more starts and you threw less than half the touchdowns and only two less interceptions. It's just embarrassing. He's got a lot to prove this year. And I don't think he's gonna do it.
Yep.
But that's just another reason to get Saquon Barkley.
Yep. So moving on to tight ends, there's one guy that pops up. There's a couple, but I don't see. There was just something I wanted to say about tight ends that I've been thinking the whole time. I don't see why people are ranking Darren Waller over George Kittle in terms of, I get it's fantasy football and a lot of George Kittle's value comes from blocking, but even in terms of just pass catching, I wouldn't rank Darren Waller over George Kittle. I don't understand. I don't understand that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Darren Waller actually has more yards than George Kittle this year. George Kittle's a better red zone guy. George Kittle's better run after the catch. I'd still take George Kittle. I agree with you.
Yeah, I would, but I don't think the tight end one's really a question in terms of in real life. It's a big question, but in fantasy, I don't think it's a question, honestly.
Yeah, if you go back to the first podcast episode, actually, where we don't know what we're talking about at all, we just kind of talk. Ben and I have an argument about George Kittle and Travis Kelce and who's the tight end one in the league. So if you want to hear that, hear that. But I don't know. I don't think either of our opinions have changed, have they?
Nope. I'm still with George Kittle.
I'm still with Kelce.
Still with Kelce, but I think we both respect how good the other person is, though.
Oh, without a doubt.
And we both understand just how close it is. Like, I practically have them tied, if I'm being honest. Like,
if I could tie them, yes, I would probably.
For me personally, it literally just comes down to what I value more in a tight end pass catch. That's basically what it comes down to. What do you value more, pass catching or blocking in a tight end? That's literally
it's not even like pass catching and blocking. It's like George Kittle versus Travis Kelce. Like, they're so individually unique as players. Yeah. It's like so hard to just determine who you want to choose.
Yeah, but and Darren Waller was great last year, but I just can't. I don't see him be outperforming George Kittle.
Yeah, I agree. Someone I do see popping up, is Irv Smith Jr. People aren't going to remember that he's the new Vikings tight end because no one pays attention to the Vikings tight end room because they have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen to deal with. But I still think Irv Smith will get some targets. I think just because Kyle Rudolph is gone doesn't mean that there's not going to be any passes to tight ends. I think Irv Smith overall is a better athlete. Probably not as good as hands, but there's a lot more you can do with an athlete at tight end than someone who can catch. Good catching is kind of teachable. And Irv Smith seems to be a very coachable player. Someone I don't see doing as good is someone that I honestly don't even dislike. I just don't think he's going to be that good is Robert Tonyan. I think Robert Tonyan is going to underperform.
I do see a lot of people saying that. I think he's going to be around the same, honestly, just because he has Rodgers throwing to him. I don't think he's actually like a good player, but he gets the opportunities because of Devontae Adams and Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I don't see why that would go away, honestly.
I also definitely I don't know how I feel about people like overlooking Mike Gesicki. I definitely think people just look at the production alone last year and be like, oh, he really wasn't that great. Mike Gesicki, if the Dolphins just choose like, hey, or just like, hey, what happened with Tua wasn't really working next year. Let's switch up the set. And Mike Gesicki is able to, if they're learning new plays, learning new formations, or at least playing with old formations that they already know more often. And Mike Gesicki is the true tight end one because he's on the depth chart. You're going to look at it and say, yeah, no question, Mike Gesicki's tight end one. But when you look on the field, their other tight ends seem to get the ball, like not just as much as Mike Gesicki because that's not true, but they get passed to much more or much less than they should compared to Mike Gesicki because Mike Gesicki could end up being a really good tight end, and he just hasn't been given the full opportunity yet. And that's what I think the issue is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And speaking of players that play style, I'm very curious in your opinion of Kyle Pitts because that's definitely probably the most like heated debate, like in terms of like fantasy, in terms of fantasy football tight end. So like, where do you see him finishing? Because people are taking him like very high as far as like the third tight end or fourth tight end taken off the board. So where do you project him finishing in terms of fantasy?
So he's the projected fourth best tight end in fantasy.
Yeah.
To me, it could be that way. But like I said, Mike Gesicki plays himself out, then he can be better. I think TJ Hawkinson in the situation of the Lions can be better. I think that Noah Fant, depending on who his quarterback is and how they're playing could even be better, even though I think Noah Fant's a very overrated player. But Kyle Pitts kind of being the second to Calvin Ridley is much better than being third to Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. So I definitely understand the Kyle Pitts placement. So honestly, if I had to be safe with it, my top 5 tight ends in terms of fantasy is Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller. I don't know if I want to go Pitts or Hawkinson here, but I'd say probably Hawkinson is safer, and then Pitts at 5.
Yeah, that'd probably be my order too. Probably exactly, honestly. I know. I like that. I like that order a lot because I don't think Pitts. I don't like the people who like. There's two ends of like the Pitts thing. I don't like the people that rank him so high because he hasn't played a snap, but I also don't like the people who say, "Oh, he shouldn't be top 10. He's just a rookie. He's just a rookie. He hasn't played a snap." I don't like the people who do that because literally he's going to be the receiver 1 as a rookie. Like, it doesn't matter that he hasn't. I get that some people like think that he's just because he's like people like literally won't not draft him just because he's a rookie. And I think that's stupid. Like, this is a unique situation. This is Kyle Pitts. We haven't really seen a player like this before.
He's not a tight end.
Exactly. We haven't seen a player like this before.
And it's not like he's a receiver at tight end spot. He's just a freak athlete at tight end spot.
He has the perfect combination of circumstances with how good of a play, probably one of the best one of the best tight end prospects ever, combined with the fact that the Falcons just lost Julio Jones and that'll free up a lot of targets for him, combined with the fact that the tight end position is so weak. It's a perfect storm of events that makes Kyle Pitts a top 5 projected fantasy tight end, and it's deservedly so as a rookie.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I get the speculation with someone like even Jalen Waddle, even though I love him so much, just because he does have the most competition probably out of all the rookie receivers, like those big 3.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But, I could see myself taking Jalen Waddle. I'm the number 1 rookie receiver I would take, out of those 3 is probably without a doubt Jamar Chase, just because I feel like Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball to him a lot.
I'd honestly take Devontae Smith.
You would take Smith? Yeah, I definitely take Jamar, Smith, then Waddle.
I'd probably take Smith first. He definitely is the least competition out of the 3, and Jalen Hurts does have a lot of upside. We talked about this earlier. He has a lot of risk, but he has a lot of upside, and honestly, he has the least competition. I mean, even the Bengals have like T. Higgins, who was great last year, Tyler Boyd, who's been great for the last couple of years, and then the Dolphins have Will Fuller, who will be suspended for a little, but he'll be back, and they have Devontae Parker. So I definitely think that Devontae Smith has the least competition, and he has a lot of big play potential. Maybe not as much as Jalen Waddle, but very close.
Here's what I'm thinking though. Julio Jones. What? I almost saw Joe Burrow, Julio Jones. Joe Burrow wanted the Bengals, even though he almost had a career-ending injury. He wanted the Bengals to take Jamar Chase and not an offensive lineman. So that clearly means this guy wants to feed Jamar Chase the ball. And honestly, it was probably not a great idea, but it's what Joe Burrow wanted. And that means he's probably going to just pass it up to Jamar Chase a lot. And I think if we're going competition-wise, yeah, Devontae Smith has the least competition in his receiver room. But I think that Jamar Chase is better than Devontae Smith as a player. I think Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, if we're still talking about Waddle. And I also think that among their receiver group, if Joe Burrow already wants to target Jamar Chase the most, you still do have to worry about T. Higgins. Like, it's weird because I think Jamar is the best of his receiver group, and I also think he has the best receiver group.
Yeah, he definitely has the most competition, like out of the
But I don't think it's competition. I think it's just people to worry about for the defenders, like people that will get open, like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, like people that will get open. But I still think Jamar will be able to get the ball the most.
I don't know. I think you're underrating T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd because Tyler Boyd has been very consistent over the past 2 years. He's been consistently been a pretty good above average receiver. And
see, I think over Tyler Boyd, I would put T. Higgins in the competition for him.
I probably would as well, but I'm just saying they've both been very. I'm just saying that Tyler Boyd's been very consistent when he's not like when he's healthy, he's been very consistent.
See, I'm not trying to underrate their talent. I'm just looking at it from Joe Burrow's perspective, which for me is give the ball to Jamar Chase. Because that's what it was in college. That's what he's used to. This is really hopefully his first healthy year. Hopefully he stays healthy. Honestly, I'm gonna stick with Jamar Chase. I probably won't end up even drafting him, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I probably won't end up drafting any of them until really late. Any receivers this year or last year, like. The only people last year that were drafted that I would consider drafting in earlier rounds is obviously Justin Jefferson, probably CeeDee Lamb, even though he's got a really tough situation in Dallas. Jerry Jeudy probably wouldn't be up there for me. Neither would Chase Claypool, I don't think. Maybe Chase Claypool. T. Higgins probably wouldn't draft. Brandon Ayuk maybe. But that's about it.
Yeah, that was a nice. I liked how you put into perspective like the receiver groups of all three of them.
Yeah.
So I think we're done with the tight. I think that's enough for the tight ends.
I mean, that conversation drifted anyways, and that would be. Is that all of the positions?
I mean, I think there's one more.
Flex.
Oh no.
Oh, kicker.
Kicker.
Okay, this is important to me actually. So don't laugh. This this is important to me.
Yes, I know.
The best kicker you could possibly take for this is probably Younghoe Koo, not Harrison Butker. Just because
Harrison Butker is kind of guaranteed points though because the Chiefs will score.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying Harrison Butker is a bad pick. I think I'll end up with Harrison Butker for sure. But here's like other people that I can others like that I can also see myself taking. So number one, like I just said, past Butker because Butker is amazing. You can always go with Justin Tucker, because Justin Tucker he's good. We know how Justin Tucker is. We don't have to worry about him being good or not because consistency is a really big thing for kickers. Because some years kickers are monsters, some years kickers aren't. But Justin Tucker is one for sure. Then Younghoe Koo, just because Falcons, I feel like always get near the red zone, but they aren't always in the scoring. Like they never do the scoring as much. So I think kicking would be a big thing for them. Jason Sanders could be really good if the Dolphins offense can get going. And Rodrigo Blankenship, I don't know about him this year just because I don't know about the offense of the Colts. And also someone who I was very pleasantly surprised with last year, who was my kicker, Daniel Carlson. The man, literally, I'm pretty sure he only missed a couple kicks, and one of them was against the Browns. Ben, do you remember when the Browns?
I remember. That was. I'm not supposed to curse. I forget, but that's
well, you can. I don't care.
I try not to, but that's probably one of the worst games I've seen. That was a bad game.
When the Raiders played the Browns and he went to go kick a field goal and it blew. It was perfect. It was perfect.
Also, why is his name so funny? Daniel Carlson. I don't know why. His name is just funny. A lot of these kickers' names are funny.
Rodrigo Blankenship, and look at him. His name's Rodrigo.
Jeez.
Matt Gay.
I think we're getting a bit off topic here. But yeah, I think I don't have much to say about the kickers, but I'd probably go with Jason Sanders.
Yeah, that's a good kicker to pick.
So any final thoughts about anything fantasy related? Because this is the one, like, we wanted to put everything into one video just so you could, like, come back to this.
All right, I need a second to think. Have a funny name that's not like annoying. Like, what's an annoying name? Like Zeke and Destroyer or something like that. Like, like a name like that, or like, oh, I see some cringy stuff like chilling with Mahomies, and it's like Mahomes.
Yeah,
I see some bad ones.
Zeke and Destroyers.
That was Ben's fantasy football name, by the way, last year.
So any final thoughts? Because I don't really have any. It's fine if you don't.
I don't.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up then. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that this was useful for you if you still have to do your fantasy football draft. Well, I know this probably helped us to get ideas out for our fantasy football draft. But yeah, thanks for watching. Our next episode will probably be coming out in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and it'll be the NFL record predictions. So yes, definitely stay tuned for that. Probably one of the most exciting episodes. But yeah, see you guys next time, and thank you for watching.